So this is a review for Alibaba Bound, released in 1940. It's the 275th in the series, and it's directed by Bob Clampett. You can find this completely uncut on the Porky Pig 101 DVD set, but as a lot of you, maybe long-time Looney Tunes fans know, this is in the public domain. Hooray, I don't have to deal with Warners on this one, fantastic. So not only will you see the review, but at the end, you're going to see in full my full upscaled copy to try and approximate the look of this in HD. Hopefully one day they'll restore it properly, but for now, I hope you enjoyed that at the very least. Now, if you don't want to stick around and watch the whole cartoon, just a brief summary of what happens. Porky is given a mission. He's part of the Legionnaires once again, because he was in the Foreign Legion before, and he just goes off on his mission, ends up being holed up in a fortress where the bad guy and his cronies are, trying to take him down. So, fun. The full audio commentary is actually still up on the channel, so if you want to listen to all of this uncut, it's there. But I thought to make it consistent with the other reviews, you'll just see some highlights from that commentary here, then you'll hear some new thoughts from me, and also an excerpt from the Bob Clampett retrospective part 1. So, grab some popcorn and enjoy. Now, this cartoon I've actually seen before. In fact, this brought back a lot of memories. Although, as you would probably expect, I saw this in a colorized form. I'm just not sure if I saw the Korean redraw or the computer one, because it was done twice. Now, this song, the way that Porky was singing, Bel's voice was not sped up. And this is a caricature of George Raft, and his signature thing was to flip a coin, basically, and here he's doing it with his foot, and I love that foot animation right there. But the fact that this had a computer colorized version done in the 90s just shows just how late, how acceptable certain stereotypes were up until a point. I mean, you had in the 60s and onwards the African-American stereotypes rightfully removed from television, and yet these sort of ones were still stayed around. Now, Confessions of a Nasty Spy, well, it's based off Confessions of a Nazi Spy. And this is the Mad Dog of the Desert. And it's literally a dog. Okay. And he's got of course, the beer goggles, quite literally. So, growing up with this one, like, you didn't really think much of the stereotypes. Oh, and this part, it's a redraw from Buddy of the Apes, where instead of African natives coming forward, now it's Arabs. So we've gone from one stereotype to another in a redrawn little section. It's only that tiny section. You'd think, why go through all that effort to do a redraw just for that barely even a second shot? I would have thought it would have been more effort than what it was actually worth. But anyway, that's why, for all of its problems, Porky 101 is still one of my favourite sets. I just, could it have been done a little bit better? Yes, certain elements, yes. And I'm pretty sure the man behind getting the set done, Jerry Beck, I'm sure he would have liked certain things to have been done better, like, a HD version and all that. But, it came at a time when literally just the vault was closed, and if it wasn't for him, I don't think we'd have a lot of these new releases coming out as we are like the Bugs Bunny 80th. So, you know what? At least we got something out of it for the time being, and hopefully, if all these are properly restored, we might get another version of it, but this time fully restored on Blu-ray, so fingers crossed. Fox told me he absolutely loves the design of this character, and he can tell me in the comments below if that's the case. But lots of things I missed, actually, when I first did the track. And, I mentioned, first of all, in the commentary, I mentioned George Raft, and, he was pretty popular at the time, and I don't see him being in any Foreign Legion films unless I missed something. But the coin flipping basically comes from his appearance in the movie Scarface, which made him a celebrity. So it's a pretty common thing whenever you see George Raft. You usually see some sort of flipping of a coin. And in this case, as I mentioned in the track, I love the animation of the foot just flipping the coin. Now, The title itself is actually based off of a 1924 song called Alabama Bound, which makes complete sense, right? I mean, it's got nothing to do with it. It's just a play on a title, which of course is what later on Friz Freleng would do a lot in his shorts, because we all love his puns there, don't we, Blue, my editor who's looking after this particular review? Now, there is a line that you hear where Porky goes, "You nasty spy." That's a Joe Penna line. Joe Penna was a comedian, and they parodied him a few times like in Daffy Duck and Egghead. He's parodied there. So, yeah, it was pretty popular, but by the 40s, you don't see as many references from what I've seen, but yeah, that's where that line comes from. The reference Baby Dumpling, that's what Porky calls the little elephant, that actually is the nickname is of a character from the comic strip and film series of Blondie, namely one of the sons, Alexander, in there. And I haven't seen too much of Blondie. I mean, obviously it inspired the Jetsons later on, but yeah, that's where that term comes from, because by this point they were making Blondie movies. Now, the Brown Turban, that's a play on the famous restaurant at the time, the Brown Derby, and it's no longer around. When you see the Brown Turban, you'll notice that there's the Legionnaires' Welcome sign, and I already spoke about the Legionnaires in the Beau Bosco review that I did a while back, but essentially it appears that Porky is once again part of the French Foreign Legion, and that's been parodied numerous times in film and radio at the time. In fact, Porky was also in another Foreign Legion short from 1936 directed by Frank Tashlin called Little Beau Porky. And it's interesting to compare the two. As to which one's better, I'd say the Tashlin one is a little better, but I don't know, I think they're both fine anyway. If you've been watching the channel a while, you know I get fascinated whenever I see signages, especially in these earlier Clamper films, because usually they're referring to something pretty obscure. So, Confessions of a Nasty Spy. So I already mentioned in the track that it's a play on the 1939 film Confessions of a Nazi Spy, released in 1939, starring Edward G. Robinson. On the same letter, if you look at the bottom, there's that tattletale grey, and that comes from the Fels-Naptha soap, which had the catchphrase, "Oh my, tattletale grey," and like the clothes are an off-white color on their ads. And this is not the first time. Clamper's used it a few times already, so he must have really loved the ad or the jingle. Yeah, it's really weird. And the other sign that we actually see at the fortress, now this is interesting because I was curious about this particular reference, but there really was an American Legion convention in Boston in 1940. Although, what's fascinating is that that convention was held in September 23rd to 26th that year, and that was after this cartoon's release, so I guess it's an interesting way to keep the reference fresh for a little bit longer that year. I don't know. What I do know is I love the dad jokes, general delivery, get it? Get it? But weirdly enough, though, what really made me laugh is that whole loving kisses part. Like, why did that need to be in there? I don't know, but I thought it was hilarious. And when you look at the top, you see the whole 6 and 7/8, and that's a gag that refers to unions being the local whatever number, for a particular branch of a union. And even the Three Stooges would use that saying, a local 6 and 7/8.
Yeah, but we're organized. Amalgamated Association of Morons. Local 6 and 7/8.
So, there you go. We see a sign that says Suicide Squad, so it's interesting that we see it here in a 1940 cartoon well before the title was a popular DC comic that came out from 1987, and of course the two movies later on, one meh, and one really good one. Now, it's of course not a gag you'd see today due to 9/11, but I will say I do like the voice of this character. It's, I just like Mel Blanc's delivery, but again, it's like, yeesh. It's it's pretty dark considering, what's happened since this cartoon was released. And yeah, speaking of dad jokes, I love the introduction regarding electric fans. Yeah, I know. It's great, isn't it? We even get a subtle fart joke with a camel being full of gas. I mean, we don't hear a fart, of course, but that Clamp was trying to push things, and he might have maybe distracted the senses from actually seeing that, or maybe they just didn't see the sign at all. I don't know, but yeah, it's right there. And later on, yeah, when we see the camel being filled up with more gas, or well, where I am, we just say petrol. I don't know why you Americans call it gas, but anyway, even though it's a liquid. But it's like, oh yeah, so that's how camels work, you know? They got those pistons inside that makes the, yeah, I don't know, I'm overthinking it, of course, but anyway. And now you're going to hear from my good friend Fox and the Fix, who actually loves this cartoon, and he spoke on the recent Bob Clampett Retrospective Part 1 video, where it's a long video, and a lot of you probably don't have time to watch the whole thing in one hit, so here's the sample from that particular retrospective. And I know this is one of Fox's favourites, Alibaba Bound. I mean, I remember as a kid, I watched this to death.
Same here.
Same.
In the colorized version, and I think it's quite fun, despite there being, yeah, it's a little bit problematic these days, but it has its charms. But Fox, what are your thoughts on that one?
Well, of course, I also watched the redrawn version as a kid on a VHS tape. It even had a very bad Dutch dub, so that's exactly why I loved it. It made this short more than hilarious, because it was kind of bad, but it was so bad that it's good. Some of this animation is absolutely insane, and I remember some of the poses making a big impression on me as a kid. But I could tell this was an early Looney Tunes short even back then. So I remember wearing this VHS tape out. It also had the cartoon Amateur Night from Tex Avery on it. So these two I really loved, and I really wore the tape out, so at one point I couldn't see it anymore, and so that was really I remember I was trying to repair the VHS tape, but it was no use. But about this cartoon, the only bad part is, it has a few bad parts, because there's a lot of edgy stuff, but at the very end there's this suicide bomber, and I can handle a little bit of violence, but he's producing this awful sound, something like meep meep, and it's not the Roadrunner sound. And I remember lowering my volume, because I didn't want to disturb my housemates with this sound.
Maybe make that an alarm.
It's not on the level of Pulse.
No, I don't think.
Out of the way.
Paul Gillian did this.
Ooh, of course. Alrighty, so this is one of those shorts where, being in the public domain, I've seen it so many times, and as I mentioned in the commentary track, it's actually even been redone twice in terms of colorization, one with the horrible Korean redraw and one computer colorized. So I've seen this one a lot, but it was never really a go-to short for me. I find it's just there. It's entertaining enough. It's not a bad short. I mean, yeah, you can't really get away with a lot of this stuff today, but the gags are pretty funny. We've got the horn, saying help and all that stuff, but yeah, it's again not a go-to short. I'd say maybe 7 out of 10, and I do like to see whenever Clampett actually uses Porky fully, instead of just, here he is, bye Porky, I want to focus on this other character. So it's always good to see that. But as an added bonus, you're going to see my AI upscale of this short from the Porky Pig 101 DVD set. I mentioned before, look, I hope that this will get a proper restoration, like with every cartoon in the Warner Brothers filmography, but for now, I hope you enjoy what I've done. So, aside from that, I'll see you next time. Bye.
When he's out dervishing with all his might, she gives him the run around. All the boyfriends of the whirling dervish are his best friends to his face. Jeepers creepers, I'd better hurry. Thanks, you nasty spy. And I thought that Alabama and his dirty sleeves were all washed up. Don't worry, Blondie. I'll take good care of baby Dumpling. Giddy up! I was a bit worried about those guys. Goodness gracious. Boy, I want to get in a battle. Boy, oh boy, what a parade. What a parade. Boy, oh boy.
What's the matter, Chief? What's the matter?
Boy, oh boy, oh boy. Now's me big chance. Gangway, gangway. Out of my way, out of my way. Out of my way, out of my way. That's all, folks.